Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon for our March installment of Work in Progress. I'm Caitlin Miranda, and I am the digital marketing producer for the Creative Collective and Culture Con. I lead our social digital team with our content strategy and production, making sure our content makes it from ideation, execution, and then to the closure phase. So huge shout out to today's workshop leaders. Super excited about this one. Bimma Williams for curating a wonderful workshop, attract paying clients, and becoming a freelance creative. Without any further ado, I'll hand it over to Bimma. Bimma, I'll let you take it away.
Thanks so much for the wonderful introduction. What's up, y'all? I'm loving the energy already in the chat. Y'all know how it is with these digital lectures, so I love to feel the energy. You know, one thing for me that's personal for me is, you know, if y'all see me on Instagram, y'all know I love throwing around a purple umbrella. So I'm gonna be using this umbrella a lot. So whatever y'all favorite emoji is, I want y'all to drop that in the chat right now because we're gonna do a lot of interacting in this conversation. How y'all dealing after yesterday with that Instagram outage? Was y'all stressed? I was a little stressed, I ain't gonna lie. I was a little stressed. But that's why I always tell people, you know, when we think about our freelance business, it's important to also have an email list. You get what I'm saying? Because these platforms, they could disappear any day. So I always just try to stress that when we're thinking about our businesses and where we want to go. For those of y'all that don't know me, that are new to me, I identify as a freelance interviewer. So you might have seen some of my work, whether it was with clients like Converse, with an interview with Tyler, the Creator, or my work as of late, where I'm working with Amazon Music on a show called Bars and Nuggets. We just did this beautiful episode with John Baptiste. We also just dropped another episode with Benny the Butcher. So I love having those conversations, but so much of my background is actually marketing. And so for over a decade, I worked in marketing in the sneaker industry, really at the intersection of brands and creatives. And so it's one of my favorite topics to talk about. And so today I want to get into that a little bit. So that's a little bit about me, but one of the questions I wanted to ask you all today is, you know, what's the most important thing that you want to accomplish this year as a creative? Drop it in the chat. Let me know. Launch my business. I feel that. Start my own marketing agency, build community, conversion, be consistent. Yes. Go full time. Retainer work. Lord knows. In-person events. Okay. We back outside. Build community. Facts. Facts. Also, I saw family in the building. What up, Lacey? Larger contracts. Absolutely. I feel y'all. Okay. Okay. Now talk to me about today, right? So in today's lecture, what are you hoping to get out of our time together? Gems, insight, okay. How to get to the money. Facts, inspiration, business funnels, finding clients, bet. Okay, well, we're about to get into a lot of that. As I already shared, y'all already bringing in the energy. The chat is active. Keep that energy going. I feed off of y'all's energy. So as you know, today's lecture is all about attracting clients. And so I'm going to bring up some slides here. We're going to jump into it. All right. So first things first, some folks may be wondering, curious, when I say creative, who am I talking about? Who are the folks that this presentation is for? So just to be very clear, it's creatives that are photographers, product designers, copywriters, content creators, journalists, creatives working 9 to 5s, right? That's who this presentation is for. And one of the first things that I want to level set with is more of a mindset thing, right? And the thing that I like to tell people is that, yo, if you're good enough to build their business, you're damn sure good enough to build your own business. And we have to carry that mindset with us, because sometimes we forget that if we were ever even employed in these places, you're good enough to do your own thing. So I just want to make sure I get that message across to you all today. Now, just some evidence of my background and where I've come from. Like I said, I was working in the industry for over a decade, and one of my first stops was Saucony. And at Saucony, I was our head of lifestyle. Some people call it Saucony, But I grew that business to $50 million at the age of 30. And it was so interesting to me because it was one of those corporate environments where they would always, have an opinion about what I would share publicly about the work that I was doing there. But we'll get into that a little bit later. After that, I ended up growing my own business since 2019, right? So since 2019, I went full time as an independent freelance creative, and I've been able to create a multi-million-dollar business standing on my own 2 feet. And today, I've gone on to interview literally so many different creatives when it comes to their business, their path, their careers. And there's so many insights and nuggets that I get from them that I bring into the work and the lecture that we're talking about today. And so what I'm trying to establish with you now is that I don't want you to take what I'm telling you off of face value. I want you to take it based off of tangible evidence, right? And so when you see me sharing different examples like this, these aren't examples that I'm sharing to flex. I'm sharing to show evidence of like, hey, this brother isn't just sharing information that he pulled from TikTok or he pulled from Instagram. This is legitimately his journey. So even if you listen to people that aren't me, make sure you have their information of evidence and that they're not just regurgitating you some stuff that they saw on the internet. Okay. So also the other thing is like, I genuinely appreciate you taking the time. For some of you, we're in the middle of the day. And so I do have something for you today. It's the one tool that helped me land my very first client. Because you're here today, we're going to make sure you get access to that. It's 100% free 99. Don't even trip. But I do want to tell you about the benefits of what it is. So first off, it was the first thing that I used to actually receive a $4,000 check. And this is one of those things that it changed my confidence when it came to my career as a freelance creative. The second thing about it was I leveraged this to create a 7-figure business. So the bones of what we're going to give you is the same thing that I leveraged from the first client to clients literally to today. And as I mentioned, it's free 99. So don't even trip about that. And then the other thing, right, is for folks that aren't here, I'm not saying nothing, but I'm just saying, like, if they're not here, they're gonna miss out. They're gonna miss out like these Jordans. They just gonna miss out, but you're gonna get it because you're here today. You took the time to invest in yourself. The other thing is that I'm not here to sell you a dream. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that this is easy, that this is a cakewalk. This is not, right? When we talk about freelance business, and some of you know this very well, like it takes work. It takes a lot of work to do this. What you're gonna hear today is just my real and unscripted story, right? Drop your favorite emoji in the chat if that's all right with you. And now here's the thing why I think this is super important is I got a love-hate relationship with scammers. I don't know if y'all kept up with that TikTok series with the lady that she was like, who the fuck did I marry? Yo, like that series had me dying. But the thing about, the scammer situation is I'm always impressed by how bold these folks are willing to go. Like they really are willing to go. And they don't even know, how it's going to end. And I'm just like, man, if we had just like a little bit of that, if we just had a little bit of that being bold like these scammers, Lord. Now, this really hitting me today because I'm sure y'all saw that Essence post, right? And we talked about the performativeness of what happened between 2020 and 2024. But that's kind of like this, all these brands made these announcements, posted these squares, and this is where we're at. But for me personally, I'm like this, shout out to the Migos, RIP, Takeoff. I walk like I talk it, right? That's what you're going to hear today. One of the things that you'll see about me, and if those of you that already follow me on Instagram, you know this to be true, is that I'll do things and I'll immediately turn around and break down what happened, right? I don't believe in the gatekeeping. I believe that there's something for all of us, and I believe my unique path is my unique path, and I believe your unique path is yours, right? And so one of my biggest dreams as a creative and a freelance interviewer was to go on the Complex Con stage. And so that goal actually became a real thing last year after 4 years. And I literally turned around and broke down how it happened. I mentioned names of folks that were essential in helping. So for me, it's about how can we pay it forward, right? And so I don't like to just be like, I did it. I want to be like, okay, this is how you could do it as well. And so for this lecture, I'm actually get into my very first experience, my very first client. And we're going to use that as the blueprint of this lecture today. And so you can see some of these photos, you can see very green, but it was also one of those moments that was really special and it changed my life. So let's get into this. One of the things, you see moms, you see me, you see the sneakers. I told you, I've been a sneaker kid for years and years and years. But the thing that I want to level set, because I'm sure some of you might be in this space as well, is that I wasn't born with clients. I wasn't born knowing how to get clients. I wasn't born with that network. My folks were actually chemical plant workers. My mom worked at a chemical plant. When it came to this creative stuff, she looked at me like, what are you talking about, bro? Like, you need to go get a job, a good job. She's like, I don't know nothing about this other stuff. And so for me, I was coming from a place of like, wow, how do I how am I gonna make this a real thing when I don't know the language and I don't have the relationship? Shout out to you, Rodney. Whereas fast forward to like 5 years ago, right? I'm gonna be very honest with y'all. Like my natural tendency is to be introverted, right? As I've grown in my career, I've had to like stretch the extroverted side of my personality because it is a requirement in the line of work that I do. But 5 years ago, I was literally working in an environment where, 18-year-old me is like face value looking at it's like, man, this should have been incredible. But for me, it was really challenging. It was because the environment it wasn't an environment for us, right? And I'm sure some of y'all who've seen some of these stories know a lot of those things. But what I'm here to talk to you about is also the transformation of that, right? And so literally, this is my show on Amazon Music. Like I get to sit with like my faves and I get to talk to them about their careers, but I've also been able to turn it into not only revenue, but recognition and as well as impact. This year I'm in the creative class 2024. Shout out to my family. Shout out to y'all. Thank y'all so much. But the other thing to point out, right, is that I started without a large following on social media, right? I didn't have a ton of connections. And at the start of my career, I didn't have that formal training. So today I want to talk to you about these 4 different steps that I believe you can action as well on your journey as a freelance creative. And just to level set on like why I'm here today. I'm here today, as I pointed out, because I didn't have this information. And what I want to share with other folks in my community is this information so that you can work for yourself, you can access that unlimited flexibility, and you can make money consistently. Drop your emoji in the chat if that sounds good to you. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I love how folks like have their favorite emoji. Like it's one of my favorite things. Okay, so I got a question for y'all. How can you make sure it takes as long as possible to attract paying clients? This is one of my favorite questions because it's a variety of things that folks might think. So I'm curious to know for y'all. Do nothing is definitely, somebody said net 90. Lord, net 90 is the worst. Lacking confidence, never talking about your offer. You stay hidden. Yep, I did a lot of that. You don't put yourself out there. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, we got a lot of these coming through. Those are definitely it. If you're not going to take action, that's always going to be it. Here's the one that stands out for me. One of the single biggest things that I see creatives do is that we try to do everything from day one. Do you get what I mean? Right? Like we look and we're like, oh, I need to do this. I need to offer this. I need to offer this. Here's the problem with that, right? When you're trying to be everything to everyone, you're going to accomplish being nothing to anyone. This is not going to be popular opinion. I know some of y'all going to be looking at me like Bimma, why are you talking to me like this? Here's the thing, y'all. When you're claiming to be a multi-hyphenate from the start, it actually hurts your chances with building trust with potential clients, right? The reason it hurts is because they don't know what it is that you can help them with. Most of potential clients, right? Most potential clients, they have a very specific problem in mind. And so when you're talking to them about everything else, they don't see you because the only thing they can see is the problem that they have. And they want to know who can help me with this. And right, you're absolutely right. It's about niching down, which is a challenge. So here's the thing. If folks don't trust you, they'll never be your client, right? Some of these folks on the screen, I'm sure y'all know of very well, right? Here's the thing about these incredible creatives that we see right here, right? They actually have marketing and sales strategies that build trust with potential clients before they even walk into the room, right? And if you're looking at these and you're like, Bimma, these people well known, like these the homies, they well known, they've been established. Okay, here's another example, right? This is my friend Jameson Green. Some of y'all in New York, so I know y'all know Jameson. Jameson don't have a big following, right? But Jameson gets work consistently because, again, he's got a dialed marketing and sales strategy that builds trust with potential clients, right? So here's the thing. When you know how to use a marketing and sales strategy properly, you can gain the trust of potential clients. Here's the other one that's going to really hit you. When you know how to gain the trust of potential clients, you're going to always have the opportunity to land a client because it allows you to get very focused on your next steps and how you're going to move forward with approaching those next steps. Okay. All right. So 4 things that I really want to get across today in our session, right? The first thing is we got to talk about what makes you one of one, right? And that's when we talk about that niche. The second thing I had to come in swinging. The second thing is client's pain point, right? And what I mean by this is one of the mistakes that I used to make was that I would come in with what I thought that they should do, right? If there was a dream client, I would be like, yo, this is what you need to do. But I didn't actually know what theirs was. I never took the time to find that out. And when I say pain point, I mean, what is the thing that keeps them up at night? What are they worried about? What is going on in their mind that's going on in their business? When you know that, gosh, you could do so much with that. The third thing is, what's your time worth, right? Sometimes we can undervalue ourselves, right? Nia said it, discovery sessions, take that time. And then the fourth part is, what do they need to see to trust you, right? Okay, so the first one, this is what I call find your superpower. It's what's the one service that you can offer that makes you one of one? Because I believe we're all one of one. We come from different backgrounds, different perspectives, right? And so there's a unique approach in all the way that we go that can make us one of one. So let me start out with my own journey, right? As I mentioned to y'all, this was me literally 5 years ago, and I was a mid-level manager. I was working at Adidas, and I was working with creatives like Donald Glover and some of these other folks. I was working on Yeezy, so you could guess that one. But I wasn't enjoying it, and I wasn't enjoying it because the environment was toxic. But I also wanted to be a world-class creative, but I couldn't get out of my own way. I was in my head, I was insecure, and you combine that with being an introvert, and so I wasn't moving. You get what I'm saying? Like I was stuck. And so the thing about this that started to shift it, like I feel like everyone has a moment where they shift, right? And this was that moment for me. It was 2018, Adidas got blasted, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna dip. But then I was like, yo, maybe I could try to do something. Like maybe there's something I can help. At the time, I was listening to a lot of podcasts. I'm not going to sit here and tell y'all that like I was like, heavily researching podcasts. I knew like it was going to pop. Nobody knew what was going to happen in 2020. I was just following my intuition, right? And so I thought, hey, what if we did one where if they're having trouble recruiting, right? Me, I think, I'm thinking, oh yeah, this is gonna naive me is like, yeah, we could just bring more Black people in. Boy. Um, so basically, folks would listen, it would be connected with recruiters. This would be easy money. Here's the thing that threw me for a loop. That organization told me that I wasn't qualified to lead that work, right? And they, even though I was coming from somewhere where I had organically grew Instagram at Saucony from 3,000 to 80,000 followers within a year, no budget, no additional tools. It was, and also this was like, this was coming at a time, y'all, when this was coming at a time, y'all, where Instagram was a different place, right? We weren't dealing with algorithms. But the thing that they told me, that they said they really liked my idea, but they wanted a white manager, actually, to actually lead it, to ensure it'd be successful. And so that shifted something in me. And essentially what happened was, in that moment, I lost something and I gained something. I lost, right, the belief that I needed a job to validate my ideas. I didn't need that anymore. What I found was my superpower. Now, some of you might be like, how you knew that was your superpower? It's a billion-dollar company. If this billion-dollar company thinks that my idea is good, other paying clients will think that this idea is good, right? And so once I knew my superpower, I was then able to apply it in multiple ways, right? So this was the opportunity for me to then take, my style of creating educational content, whether it's through conversation or lectures like this. This is one of those examples, right? To interviewing P-Rod and Tulani of Rad Black Kids, right? So what I'm saying is, whether you're landing your first client or your 100th client, when you know your superpower, you can now apply it, morph it, stretch it into multiple things. This works at all levels, right? Whether you're working with individuals, you're working with small businesses, corporation, I've stretched it to all of those different places. The second thing is, you got to research your clientele. And this is when I'm talking about those discovery conversations. Now, for me, like, when you know your superpower, that's one thing, right? But then it's like, okay, how am I going to tailor this, right, so that it actually meets a client's needs? And so despite the naysayers at Adidas, I decided to pursue it on my own. And one of the things I always like to stress when it comes to services or products is that don't start with a client's needs. I believe you need to start with a authentic insight from your own experience, right? And tailoring it against your taste as the authentic pain point, and then doing the reverse. I think when you do it the opposite way, it's ingenuine and it's never going to be as good as it can be. So here's the thing for me, right? The thing that I knew to be true was that I didn't grow up knowing about careers in the creative industry or creatives that actually work in the industry. I didn't know that at all, right? So now that I had worked in the industry, what I recognized was that there's a ton of folks that don't have this information about the perspective from a Black and brown creative. You get what I'm saying? I knew that to be true because I was in it and I knew people that weren't in it. I saw a gap. So my vision was simply, yo, I have this network that I didn't have when I grew up in Louisiana. When I was growing up in little old Baton Rouge, me and my homies was dreaming, and we didn't have this information. Today, not only do I have the information and the experience, I also have the network, right? And so what if, right? What if all I did was do those interviews? Shout out to Baton Rouge, we in the building. Eunice, we in the building. Yo, that's fire. I love it. So here's the thing. I had the idea. What I didn't know is if it was something that creatives wanted from me, right? And so I wasn't known, right? I needed to figure out how would I do that. And so I needed to do some research, but I had to get outside the bubble of the friends. And what I mean by that, y'all, is that you can't just talk to your friends and family about these things, because I love my friends and family, but I'm gonna keep it a buck with y'all. Y'all don't be telling me the truth. I have to go outside of that. And the reason for that is not because they're not my friends. It's because they want to protect me, right? They don't want to hurt my feelings a lot of the time. But I'm the type of person that's like, yo, if I got something on my face before I walk outside and you don't tell me, I'm not going to be mad at the person that told me. I'm going to be mad at you for not telling me, right? So that's the mentality when I think about your ideas. You have to get to a space where you can get in front of folks that are going to give you real unbiased feedback. So for me, that unbiased feedback led me to the African American Footwear Forum, which is now called the Black Footwear Forum. And one of the things that I wanted to do was I just wanted to validate my idea in a space where folks could give me real feedback. And for me, again, you have to adopt this in a way that makes you comfortable. What I'm not telling you is that if you're an introvert like me, but you are definitely not comfortable being on a stage or being in front of a large audience of other people, do it in a smaller way, right? Get the feedback quickly and in a smaller, safer environment. I tried to do that here, but they were like, I tried to do this in a room of 20 people. I said, I had this interview concept. I want to do it in a room of 20 people. I want to fail fast, fall on my face, right? Here's the problem. They said, hey, we got this gap in our programming. We need you to hit the main stage. And I don't know what was going on with me that day, but I know it was intervention. I know it was God. And that's the only way I got on that stage. But let me tell you, I'm so thankful that I did get on that stage because I conducted 4 interviews and I got off that stage this was in front of media and press. This was in front of my peers in the industry, aspiring creatives that wanted to get in the industry. Like it was a lot of decision makers in the room, which is very important if you want to accelerate and validate ideas. What happened was when I got off stage, I was rushed with like, hey, this resonates with me too. Like these are additional problems that I'm facing and struggles. And so it allowed me to start to recognize how I can tailor the idea that I had to meet them where they were. You get what I'm saying? I'm bridging this gap from number 1 that we were talking about. And from then on, I knew like, okay, now I actually have also demand for what it is that I want to do. Now, the photo here is real. I'm an introvert. So when I got to share a bunch of energy, I'm tired. So when I got off that stage and I got finished talking to them people, I really was passed out on the floor. I ain't playing with y'all. Now, here's the thing though. I got so much out of getting feedback outside of my circle, right? I got to establish what the pain point was. And then I also received feedback and cosigns, right? And so this lecture is actually an example of that. Like when I'm looking in the chat and I see where y'all are vibing and where you aren't vibing, it helps me know like, okay, maybe that didn't land well and I could tweak this. Or like this works, right? You know, when Simone's saying like, yo, no, this is really resonating with me. I'm like, okay, bet this is where I want to dig in more. So that's really the second one. Also for the graphic designers in the building, y'all don't be making fun of my little umbrella graphic, but I'm just trying to visualize and bring y'all along the journey. Step 3 is about determining your rate, right? And this is about what's your time worth, what's your energy worth, what's your creativity worth, right? Thank you, Patrice, no judgment. So here's the thing for me, like I knew my superpower, right? And I knew the clientele that I wanted to work with. And now I was like, okay, how am I gonna get to the bag, right? Because let's be frank, we all got bills and I need to have bills paid. So outside of my job though, right? I didn't know, I never really had to think about how I needed to pay, justify my pay outside of that, right? Or specifically against my superpower, my service. And so on the open market, I wasn't sure what my time was worth. But let me be very also clear too. I wasn't confident as well when it came to that, right? So I was insecure about like, will someone actually, spend this money? So I was, I had a mindset issue, but I also had an information issue at the same time. And so I was searching for clarity from a lot of different places. Have y'all, and some of y'all probably been there here too, where you reach out to every creative and everybody got something different to say? Like literally everybody. Everybody got a different approach. And I'm like, bam, how can you help me where I am today? Because some people, they be like decades in and they be telling you their approach today. And I'm like, fam, I'm not decades in. I'm day one. Help me with the day one, ground zero. So all of these things, that's what I was going through. And so folks would say, project rate or hourly rate. And so I understood I kind of understood the concept of an hourly rate. But the challenge with that was that they were like, a project rate was just like, this flat fee, right? This flat fee, this is all that it encompasses, all those things, right? And I thought that sounded great, right? But I didn't know, I still needed to know what my hourly was before I could tell somebody what a flat rate was. Otherwise, like I'm not calculating it right and I'm leaving money on the table. It was simple as that. So what worked best for me, and this is one of the things I also try to stress too, is like sometimes is get a coach or upskill, whether it's LinkedIn or YouTube University, y'all know what it is. For me, I like the coach approach. So I signed up for this coach. They helped me learn how to write scope of work, but also calculate my hourly rate, which is the most important thing. And what gave me confidence was she showed me the evidence, and I put that evidence to work as evidence of today, right? And so the thing about the hourly that I learned that I didn't realize was like I learned how to calculate sick days in and vacation, as well as I also learned, goodness, the vacation part, the taxes, y'all. It's tax season. I don't mean to like stress nobody out, but that's a big one. Okay, so here's the thing too about rates, and like again, today we're getting into the tip of the iceberg, but it's a much deeper conversation. Your rate can change based on a lot of different things. Okay, rate change on the hours that you want to work, your expenses, your experience, right? Your goals, etc. Right? And the other thing here too is that it's not a one-way conversation. Understanding your rate is so that so you're very conscious of if you agree to a number, that if it's undervaluing you, or if it's meeting you where you want to be, right? At the end of the day, what is important is that we have to understand what our client's budget is and if we're comfortable working like that. There's things that I'll do trade-offs. I might sacrifice my rate in a particular situation if I believe it's beneficial to where I want to go in my career. But that is subjective, and that's something that everyone has to experience on their own, address on their own. But make no mistake, when it comes to the tax side, IRS does not play. Make sure you factor that in so that you're like, yo, all this money just left and I didn't account for taxes. Account for taxes. The taxes need to be a part of your rate. It doesn't need to be client facing, but it's what you need to factor in when it comes to that. So I'm sorry for going on the bandwagon on that, but like, when it comes to the money stuff, we got to be tighter. So here's the fourth thing. You got to market your service. And this part for me was tough because I always felt a little awkward talking to other people about what it is that my service was, but also trying to find the words to share how it was beneficial on the opposite side of that. So here's one thing I want to share. Like I mentioned, I grew up in a Black community. Like most of my community, Black, all my mentors, leaders, all of that. The thing that I didn't have was that these folks didn't have the information behind the curtain on what these projects look like. How do I present this information? Like, who are the people that are getting buku money? I want to know who's getting the bag, and I want to know how they're communicating to get that bag. And so one of the things that happened was I met this guy named Mike Thielen. Mike's on the right, and Mike was this white guy living in Portland, Oregon, and he has one of the biggest food festivals on the West Coast. And a homie connected us, and he knew like I was just trying to figure out this piece. I was like, what is what's this part? I'm not getting this part. I don't know how to communicate my services or why someone needs this from me. And so for advice, I reached out because this guy, I've come to find out, he's been raising millions of dollars for his festival. And he's dialed it to a point where he knows how to have these conversations with these folks, as a part of it, right? So here's the thing that he hit me to that I was just like, yo, this is crazy. I've never seen this before. First, he talked to me about how to introduce my conversation with clients, right? And what he said to me was like, what I was doing was I was like, I was really in the weeds in a lot of my conversations. In my approach with him, I was in the weeds. And one of the things that he told me, right? He was like, you got to focus on the vision. Don't be down here. You need to focus on the vision and how it aligns with the problem that they're actually having. And then he also did something that blew my mind. He gave me one of his old decks. He was like, hey, this is what it is. He broke it down to me. He showed me what was in there, right? And this is the first time I'd ever seen like a deck that someone used to raise. This one, he had raised like at the time for one client, he got like a $350,000 client. And it wasn't that I was like, yo, I'm trying to go get a $350,000 client, But what it did for me was it showed me the thinking and how these folks who are gonna write those checks, how they prefer to see information. And that is a game changer. When you can see how they prefer this information to be shared, now you can do what you need to do. So I was like, bet. Now that I had that, I started to reach out to my little network. Didn't have a big network, but I was like, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing these interviews. Can you help me, right? So I asked some folks if they knew any businesses that needed the services that I offered. My friend Herb here, who's connected to African American Footwear Forum, was like, yes. Let me show you how Herb set me up. He said he hit this director at Portland State University. He said, in this hook, he said, look, I got a friend that creates educational content for aspiring creatives that want to work in the sneaker industry. He was very specific, right? This director happened to be looking for someone like me. That's crazy. That's also the power of a good referral. And so, interested in that, they asked for more information. And thankfully, I met with Mike. So I was able to take the information he gave me, break it down into my service. And here's the thing, y'all. As you saw with my struggle umbrella, I'm not a graphic designer. And at the time, I wasn't well versed in Canva. So the thing I did was I leaned into my strength. I put it together in a Word doc. Super simple. But the important thing was the right information was in that doc now. I knew how to lay out the information. And so based on that, right, this is what happened. This literally resulted in me landing my first client while I was working my 9 to 5. I got that $4,000 check. And then I've gone on to create this into a $3 million business in revenue from various freelance projects, right? That's literally all that I did. So since then, right, I've gone on to stretch it into these things, right? It went from helping me, when I got that first client, that's where that confidence to bet on myself went, right? And then it started me on my path to becoming a freelance creative. And then I've worked for myself since June 2020. So basically what I'm telling you is during the hardest time, I left. And that's how I know that this works, because I did this during the hardest part of my career. So here's one I want to recap real quick, because I know we're on time, we're at time, is basically, this is what we just talked about. I talked to you about how I replaced my 9 to 5 salary, how I attracted 6-figure clients like Converse, and how I became a full-time freelance creative. And so it is recorded, so I believe it will be recirculated. Just to revisit, step one is find that superpower, right, y'all? I want you to find your superpower so that you know how to then leverage that, right? Secondly is research your clientele. You want to understand what it is that keeps them up at night. The third thing is I want you to determine your rate. There are different ways that you can do this, but the most important thing is once you figure out, now you know your value, so now you're not stressing about that. And then the fourth part is market your service. So here's the thing. Can y'all see how when I talk about that, right? So this is what I call the freedom framework. This is these are the simple marketing strategies to help you become a freelance client. Can y'all see that? Can you drop your emoji or yes in the chat if you felt like you got the context of that? Okay. Bet. Here's the other thing. Can you see how this allows you to work for yourself, right? Like that was the thing that we addressed at the beginning, right? When you implement these things, that's how it helps, right? Here's the other thing. Why I think this is important is because so many creatives don't take the time to focus on the marketing and sales part. And I get it. Like it's another thing that you have to focus on. But this, right, the freedom framework, as I call it, this is the difference between where you are and where you want to be. This is that marketing and sales part of the conversation. And so tonight, here's the thing, or today, here's the thing, right? We just touched the surface, right? And a part of this is like, you can go on, you could do this on your own, and you likely will. But the other thing is like, I do help a lot with this, right? And so one of the things you'll receive after this is I do have an accelerator program. It's called the Claim Freedom Accelerator. It's an 8-week program, and we focus on going deep into those 4 areas. And so when you leave out of that, you know exactly how to do it with confidence. And so because we're at time, I just want to make sure that information will be there. It'll be in your email. And then the other thing that'll be in your email, because you stuck with us, is that I'm actually going to give you that first deck. I'll make sure the link is with the team. You'll receive the first deck that I use broken down. Here's what's in it. You'll know how I pitch myself. You'll know how I identified the client's problem, the solution, the services, the evidence, and the price. It's all in there. It's all in there. All right, Caitlin, I'm done. I'm done.
No, you have me with my notes right here. Like this was so good. Thank you so much, Bimma. Like wow, I literally was sitting here taking so many notes, just getting all the gems, receiving it, and just engaging with the comments. Thank you so much, Bimma, for leading such an informational workshop and partnering with us on today's session. We'll be sure to share that link out to everyone. And thank you to you all for joining on this lovely Wednesday. And please stay in tune for our next work in progress session. Bye, everyone.